Good morning. This is not a workshop update. Well, sort of it is, I guess. So it's super early in the morning. I'm sitting here in Arkansas, jamming out on some K Crew out of Santa Monica. Actually, I think they're worldwide now. They've got a satellite in Brazil and one also in Germany. And I just turn that down a little bit so you guys can hear me. I'm really enjoying kind of getting out of my normal routine. So my days have been starting a lot earlier. This is what I normally do when I start my day out. At the very end of the night, I'll clean all the eyelets out on this stuff. And then in the morning, unless I have time, usually when I get out of the studio anymore, it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night, sometimes later. That's okay. It's a good problem to have. Thanks to all of you out there in YouTube land and website land and Facebook land and Instagram land. And 'tis the season for sharing and giving and caring. So I always try and give back to the community. So we are going to do a spray session today. I'm just kind of doing a soft cold open, showing you a little bit about what I do, and that's not what I want to do there. See, it's early. Jenny needs coffee. Yeah, K Crew is I think it's 89.9 out of Southern California. One of my favorite stations on the West Coast. And on the East Coast, I like WXPN. There's also a really cool college station in Anchorage, Alaska that I pick up every once in a while. We are listening to this courtesy of Radio Garden. Thank you, Radio Garden, for bringing us groovy tunes to our ears first thing in the morning. So this is the finishing desk, basically, is what I call it. It's where I sit and show you guys the workshop updates and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I have shown you this, but this is mostly hand detailed. It's on one of those little LJMD 50s. But I don't recall whether or not I was able to get it in the last workshop update, or even if it was ready in the last one. This is really cool. Inspired by another member on the Brotherhood of Custom Crankbait Painting, which I love. Thank you, Michael Orstein, for giving us that page. It's pretty awesome. And you got to give credit where credit is due. Always pay it forward whenever you can. But yeah, Wes's is really good too. Check out his work, Wes Louie. Also amazing bait artist, and I think artist all around. So this is what we're doing today, and I think it's time to show you. Merry Christmas, y'all. We are going to do a State of Decay, our Goblin. Let's get to it. Hey, okay, so let's get right into this. I've got just a couple of hours before I have to go deliver some water-sketched original prints to somebody downtown. So I want to teach you guys a really cool trick, and it's one of my favorite patterns. I love doing stuff that's almost like a 3D image effect, hand-painted. So this is going to be sort of like I have another exposed muscle technique. This is going to be very similar to that. We're starting with a black base. It's a 1.5. This is actually one of the orders that I'm going to be working on for a client, so it's in process anyway. So I thought it was a good time, being that it's Christmas, and I like to give gifts out at Christmas, teach you how to do a really cool one. So we've started with this black base. It's an opaque, just a Createx black base. And we're going to be using two different techniques here. The first is going to be this Doris metal mesh fabric, and there is a link in the description below on where you can get that at a very reasonable price. So take a look for the Doris metal mesh. Okay, and there's also a couple of different other fabrics and lots of cool stuff to take advantage of for there. So we're going to be using this first, and we're going to layer it, and then we're going to come back after we've heat set it, and we're going to be doing some really cool stenciling techniques. Now these are Art Tools stencils. I can also link that in the description below as well, but you can also pick up some really cool templates and stuff from Russ Allen, Insane Customs. So if you check Russ Allen, Insane Custom Stencils out on Facebook, you can see him there. Also Corey Van Vonderen does stenciling. There's a lot of different unique opportunities to get some cool stuff to pattern your baits with. This is just one of them, and I am using the Art Tools today. A couple of different ones, but it's the same concept in the pattern. It's going to give you that 3D effect. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out these little helping hand gator clips. Everything that you need to create this is going to be linked in the description below. I like to make sure you guys know where to get the stuff that you should make the patterns with. And if you have different ways of doing this, let's say that you do some exposed muscle and some pretty cool stuff, then I want to know about it too. Sharing is caring, especially around Christmas time. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your December. It's been kind of weird here in Arkansas. We had some really cold weather, and we had our first ice storm of the season. It's not quite December 21st yet. It's somewhere in between there. What is it today? The 12th? The 11th? I think it's the 11th, Tuesday, right? So anyways, this will probably come out. I'm going to have a chance to edit this and hopefully get it up by this weekend. So you guys should be seeing this one by the weekend. But yeah, the weather's been crazy. It has been windy. And then we've had a couple of days where it's been right around 60. And then we've had days into the teens. So the weather does not know what it wants to do. Usually doesn't cooperate in December. But hopefully you guys are having some decent weather where you're located, be that in the States or around the world. I know I do have some subscribers globally, and thank you. I really appreciate the support. And we also have a few new Patreon subscribers. So I think I've listed you guys in the previous workshop videos. Thank you so much. Basically, with Patreon, you guys are just helping give me back to the community. So you're helping me keep supplies in my shop that'll allow me to teach you guys how to do this stuff, which is what I really like to do. So we've just got this clipped. And we want a pretty tight wrap on this. And we've got a black base on this, and we're going to turn around and we're going to put white on top of this. Just a complete white, and then we're going to pull in our color after that. I'm using my mix. I've got to get that finished up before I break out my golden. I'm pretty excited. I got some golden now and some Testors Aztec. Top of the morning. This is the first spray of the day. I also want to get this. I think I'm going to do this one in a video for you guys as well. Just some different techniques. I've been watching this guy on Brotherhood of Custom Crankbait Painting on Facebook, and he's doing a lot of really cool hand stuff with these baits. So I think we want to show you maybe a little bit about how to do that and accomplish it, but not today. Today we're going to stick with just one thing. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's ants. Whenever we have, it's almost like subtropical here in Arkansas because I'm in the Delta. I'm not in the northern mountainous region of Arkansas. I'm down closer to the Mississippi River. And we go through this rainy season almost like if we were in the tropics. And when that happens and we have sustained rain the way it has been in Arkansas and Texas for the last weeks, months, year, it's been a really wet year, the ants have a tendency to want to hang out where you're at and not be in their little ant hills and homes outside, which makes for a very interesting kind of cohesion. Not really. Ants always kind of creep me out because it makes me feel like I'm not clean, and we are. This is a very clean household. Even with 5 animals, the small petting zoo, we're extremely clean. I'm almost fanatical about it. So, all right, so we've got this white base on here, and we're going to just keep on rolling. We are going to do a quick heat set on this, and I'm so happy that I've pulled this out here. It's just a Conair 1875. Plenty of heat. It's a little noisy. But I found for what I'm doing, it's everything that I need. So just a higher output hair dryer, if you're not going to use a heat gun, is probably the best. I would say anything above a 1600. So I just happen to really like this one. It's been a workhorse, and it's fairly easy to clean. I don't know if you can see the bottom of that, but it's pretty easy. Just run a Q-tip in there, and it'll clean up nice and quick. We're going to fill a little bit of orange, and I'm going to use a couple of different oranges, so let's keep the colors out that we're running through. We started out with that black opaque black opaque base. I'm trying to roll pretty quick through this. I don't know why, because I've had coffee. Createx. And now we're going to throw in some orange, fluorescent orange, 5409. We're going to run that white out. I'm going to come in with a lighter orange on the bottom, run it up the sides. Make sure you get all through the cracks and crevices on the bottom, because when you pin these things up, they have a tendency to leave bald spots where the paint can't get, so really make sure you're getting your brush in there. And just run the paint out of that. And then you want to come back. Now we're going to add a little bit of pearlized tangerine. That's pretty easy to shoot as a base. I had a question the other day on, I can't remember if it was a YouTube channel or if it was on my Jekyll Baits page. They were having some difficulty shooting detail work with pearl. Pearl's a little bit thicker because it's got that metallic flake in it. Has a tendency to clog at lower pressures if you're trying to do detail work, but shoots very well at a base. I'm shooting a little bit lower on this bait for some reason than I normally do, but it's still going through pretty well. We are shooting at about 30 psi for our base, and then we're going to bring that down to somewhere between 5 and 10 to shoot the detail on this once we're finished with it. So now we've got the entire bait covered. I've got the pearlized tangerine on top of fluorescent orange. Now we're going to feather it. What do I mean by feathering? Well, and you see I'm not cleaning my chamber either. This is one of those things where when you work from light to dark, except for the base that I did the day before, remember that, the base was done the day before. I put black on it, let it sit overnight, didn't heat set it, just let it dry to the bait. Do its own little groovy adhesion. Now I've got a little bit darker of this, let's see what do we got here, some burnt sienna, almost a sepia. But now we're going to lay this bait down at an angle. I'm going to bring it off the desk so I'm not shooting across the top of the desk, but we are going to shoot across the top of this bait. Now, this is a trick that Michael Ornstein taught me. I always try and give them a plug. The folks that have taught me, I really try to pay it forward and give it back. So now we've got just a little bit of that in certain spots, and you will see a mottled effect once we pull all this off. And now we are going to bring, actually, you know what, let's bring a darker brown. I don't want to pull the black until we're right ready to do the other part of the detailing. One of the things that I always try to preach is to make sure you get all the gunk off of here. All of the gunk. Just pour just a few drops in there. And this stuff, Wicked's a little bit thicker than the Createx, but it will still shoot just fine. 30, 40, 50, the higher pressured. And just get that across the top of the bait. And you see how I'm laying this bait down. We've done this before. There's been other videos that I've shown you guys, and then maybe just a couple of different. There we go. Ta-da! Now we're going to heat set real quick, and I'm going to leave the whole thing going while this is easier than you guys think it would be. The hardest part of this bait is going to be putting that stencil on. That's where you need your trigger control. That's where that's going to come in. Alrighty. I don't want to jinx it, but the Yorkie Poo has not gone nuts. Normally, if you guys are new to the channel, if you haven't met Rascal the Yorkie Poo, you will. You're going to hear him inevitably at some point throughout my videos. There is a small petting zoo here. 2 cats, 3 dogs, 2 humans. 2 and a household full of love. We just finished drying that. We are now set to take this off. So I also got a question, and again, I haven't remembered everybody's name because I get a lot of questions on a lot of different videos daily, so I try and keep up with as many questions as I can. But I also, it was actually a picture of a bait that somebody had sent me, and they were having some issues where when it was like scaling like this stuff, and they had it put down on the bait. When they lifted it up, it was still tacky and it stuck to the scaling. One of the little tricks that I'm going to teach you now is when you're pulling this stuff away from your bait, instead of just ripping it, I always tell you to rip it like a Band-Aid. You can, as long as you know that your stuff is dry. But if you're not sure, kind of stretch it out. Just give it a little stretch, and that's going to loosen that paint up from the crevices and cracks, and then it should just peel right off. And it does. Now we've got this veining in here, which is really what you want to see. This is a cool veining effect. I started doing this particular color around Halloween just because it was orange and I like Halloween. And there were some cool baits that came out this season for Halloween. I really enjoyed seeing everybody do some different stuff this year. Some really cool stuff. I think Chucky was my favorite. Gerald Novitt, if you're listening. So Gerald is one of the out-of-the-box thinkers that I've come to really admire in this craft. So we are pretty much set. This is dry enough to where I can lay a stencil. As long as it's dry enough to the touch where you're not getting any paint or residuals back up off of it, you're set to do the next step. So now we're going to put this back into the helping hands. Those little gator clips. These things, you know, and I have small hands, obviously. These are too big, but everything that I buy is too big. If you guys have any tricks out there for smaller gloves where I can get some small, inexpensive nitrile, help me out. Send it my way. I'm gonna lay this bait down on its side. Yep, we're still listening to K Crew out of Santa Monica. Now we're gonna do these, but before we do it on the bait, just like I always teach you guys, if you have scrap paper, practice here first. So just pull that out. Let's get our black going. Just put in a little bit of, and this is probably too much. I've got like 5 or 6 drops in there. Run it through, and we're going to pull this PSI way down. The way to do that, to check it, is just don't pull back on your trigger, just press it down. And you'll hear it, and I know this runs a good bit, but you'll hear that pressure come down. Alright. Now we're ready to show you guys what this is going to look like and what it should look like on your bait. You should be able to mimic it when you lay this down. Now it does take a little bit of practice to hold this steady. A lot of the times you can brace your hand underneath the bait while you hold it to the area that you're spraying. But just to show you what this is going to look like, and this is the same one that I use, you want to try and stay with the outlines of whatever area you're working. Okay, we're going to do a few of these just so you guys can see it. We're also going to hope that this is in frame. If it's not in frame, I'm going to have to reshoot this, and I'm trying to get this done since I've got someplace I need to be. I'm trying to get this done in a relatively short period of time, and then we're going to come back and fill in all these little spots. We're going to leave the shadowy areas, and I'm able to achieve this, folks, by laying the tip of this brush and just following these areas. I'm not trying to paint in here, because the spray, the overspray, will do that itself, so that when you lift this up, you have a really cool shadowed effect. Okay, so basically when you turn around and do this on your bait, this area that's white here is going to be your orange on the bait, and everything that's inside of it is going to be a little bit shadowed, and then it'll turn it a darker orange, so you get that 3D effect off of it. Is the coolest thing since sliced bread, and it's a very easy trick. You just have to learn control. One of the reasons that I've learned control so easily is that I've spent tons of time just blowing dots, basically is what I call it. But just blow dots and then blow bigger dots, and you see when you start to get that splatter like that one, then you're pulling back too fast and you're loading too much paint into the nozzle head. So just slow it down, and as long as you've got consistent paint and a consistent air chamber, that's how you practice it. And then when you come back and practice on this, you just want to run it as close as you can at a very light trigger touch. And you get some pretty cool looking outlines. Very cool for exposed muscle. So this is probably, it's not the first time that I've shown this technique, but it's probably the most in-depth that I've gotten with trying to teach you guys how to apply it to your baits. So now we get to do this. Now this is a small bait. I usually do it on bigger baits like lipless and 2.5s, S-cranks. Love to trick out the S-cranks. So we're just going to come through, and I've got one finger underneath the bait. I've got it pretty firm in these alligator clips, and then leaving this. And if you notice a clog, pull it off your bait and clean your clog out on the paper. That's why I always keep scrap paper. I'm going to run down the middle to establish the middle. And then just kind of run that, and then you can kind of move it a little bit. And there's your pattern, and it's just so cool. And do the middle here, you get the back done. And you don't have to do the whole thing, like you can kind of do little pieces, parts of this. But you definitely want to get that shading in there. You want to make this look like it's 3D. It just takes a little bit of control and patience to get that effect. And the cool thing about these helping hands is you can kind of just move them however you need them. And it works out real well. There we go. And you can see that pattern's really start to take shape there. I'm going to flip this over. And you can see that you would think that this would be a difficult pattern. It certainly looks really cool when you're doing it. And again, I'm bracing my hand on the bottom of this bait. I'm just kind of angling as I go, but I'm leaving my bracing finger underneath in the same place so I can just kind of move this back and forth. And then you can do other cool things like the shade one section up on the head, and then turn around and do the same thing with the belly. And you wouldn't think that this would take as short a period of time as it does, but it's not bad. It's pretty quick. One thing I do want to do is just move that back to where I can lay that down real easy. And this one we'll do a little bit less, but we'll concentrate on the seams here. So we're going to get a little bit darker on this side of it. I see that just a little bit of a clog. There we go. Come back through, And then you have a much more defined, when you blow it a little bit darker, you have a much more defined crease and seam that you can see. So there we go. That is how we do the Goblin. And the tonal differences, they look maybe a little bit dull now, but when you put them in that clear coat, it really is going to make it more contrasted. It becomes a very contrasty bait. And you don't want to do too much. You still want to be able to see that orange. Now the next thing we want to do is take some eyes. Figure out what color eyes we want on this. Okay, on this one in particular, I usually use these molded chrome eyes that are different colors, and I've been using green more for it was a Halloween pumpkin kind of effect. The green and orange you generally see together, but it could be anything. We could do blue eyes. I'm going to do yellow eyes on this particular one, only because I've done green on just about everything else. So just switch it up just a little bit, and it's still going to be a contrast enough. That's probably too much. If you guys get too much of this glue, you can just grab something that's going to be a little absorbent, like a piece of paper or a paper towel if you have that handy. Now these are 6mm eyes. Generally I would do 5mm eyes for 1.5s, which is what this is. But I really want these to stand out, and it will accommodate a 6mm eye. But it's really going to look like a bug eye, which is totally cool. But these little 1.5s definitely accommodate a bigger eye. The rule of thumb is 2.5s, S-cranks, anything that's a little bit larger that takes a round eye is going to be about a 6mm. If it's small, like this 1.5, generally you'll find, like on these, I did just a little gill pattern, and you'll notice that that's a 5mm. It's a little bit smaller. But for this particular bait, we could have put either, but I really like that eye to pop out on these baits, really make that contrast. So that is the eye portion of this. Now the only thing left is to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your time today. We're going to throw this in clear coat, and at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Hope you guys have a great December. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all of that cool stuff. Okay guys, just to give a quick recap on what we did today. Real basic bait. We started out with a black base on this. This is the Goblin State of Decay. After that, we put on our Doris metal mesh, description link below. We then added white after we had that all pinned down, and we used these little alligator clips to do that. Covered this, based it with white, rebased it over the black, heat set that. On that we added fluorescent orange and a pearlized darker orange. It's a tangerine actually. It's a 5312 and a 5409. Those are the two oranges we used. For a little bit of tone and shading, we brought in some Wicked burnt sienna and a little bit of darker burnt orange. We feathered that across the top of the bait with the mesh still on. We heat set all of that. I showed you how to properly peel this back if you're having problems with adhesion, with the paint being a little tacky and sticking to the materials that you're using to spray through when you're layering. Just kind of stretch it out, pop that paint off of there. It will definitely give you a much better result with that. Once we had this off, after the heat set, we picked up our Art Tool stencil. That's the stencil that I used, and I showed you to do it on these. I always like to keep that spare piece of paper and really work your shading in. It just takes practice. Practice with dots. You can practice with getting further and closer off of this. And if you want more instruction on how to be a better trigger control sprayer, if you're new to the craft, then please leave a comment in the description below. By all means, if you guys have questions or comments, and if I don't know the answers, then there's just a plethora of people out there that do. My constant recommendations are people like Michael Ornstein, Garcia Rosa, Pete Carter, Russ Allen, Jonas Summers. Gerald Novick is another good one. There's a lot of really talented artists out there. Jeannie is out there. So make sure you guys are getting as many resources available to you as possible to learn. I might have one style, somebody else might do it a little bit differently. So just like everything else in life, take what you like and leave the rest behind, and kind of try and turn that into something that's unique to you. Kind of pull that all together and make your own designs from that. And then, you know, add on to this. If you see something, hey, I could do this just a little bit differently, do it. That's what makes you a unique artist and painter. So hopefully I've helped you a little bit today. This is a very cool pattern. It's going to look even better once we get this dipped in the clear coat. And I've shown you plenty of times on how I dip. You just want to dip it in slow and pull it back out, and it's going to let it sit overnight. So we're going to show you the results at the end. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time. It's always great company. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, everything, everyone. Love you guys. Mean it. See ya.